up, guys? MaksWerks here, and today we're doing a review on this 2007 CBR600RR that's been converted into a Street Fighter. Mechanically, this bike is all stock except for a Yosh exhaust, so I think the review itself will still be pretty good, but obviously I can't really comment on the aerodynamics of the stock bike. So first of all, let's talk about the way it looks. I'm gonna try to do these a little bit more structured so that we go, point by point. But so the way it looks, right now you should see on the screen there should be, I'm using stock photos that I grabbed off of Google because well, I mean there's not really, I mean, this bike has been wrecked, and so I can't really use its photos. So stock photos up on Google right now. As you can see, I'm a huge fan. I think these are some of the best looking bikes, this and the CBR1000RR for the same generation. You got a nice bee sting tail, real sharp. You got the undertail exhaust, which I don't really like for comfort, but it looks great in a parking lot. And I really like the front end. You have a very simple, bold face. You got those scowling eyes, and I think it's just a beautiful, really great looking bike from a visual standpoint. Yeah, that's not really secured right now. The zip ties kind of fell off. So anyway, great looking bike. Let's see, moving on. So power plant that's down here between my legs is a 599cc inline 4 from Honda. You got a 6-speed transmission feeding a chain in the rear. Pretty standard stuff. This bike made about 100 horses and about 42 pound-feet of torque, which isn't exactly jaw-dropping, but in the 600 class it's pretty appropriate. Now, here's a graph for 2007 of this bike's power compared to its major competitors, the R6, the Gixxer 600, and the ZX6R. And you can see that they're all right around that 100 horse, 40 pound-foot of torque mark. And so I would say that it's appropriate. We're actually gonna merge up onto the highway here and see what it's like at highway speeds. So cruising on the highway, Jesus, my helmet is old. It's pretty loud in here. But the bike feels super stable. It's got kind of a short wheelbase, even for a 600, but it feels pretty stable here on the highway. There's not really much of an issue. Unfortunately, I can't see how fast we're going, so we're just going to pace this truck right here. But in terms of highway cruising, I'm sure that with the stock, I'm sure that with the stock bearings and stuff, this bike is probably a lot more comfortable to ride. Right now, I just got no wind protection at all. We're probably doing 75, 80 miles an hour, and it's well, it's never a ton of fun without wind protection. But in terms of stability, it's really pretty spot on. And so I would say that this engine is really smooth. That would be its primary characteristic. It doesn't feel like it's really all that powerful, but the transmission shifts with a nice little click. There's not really any pressure anywhere in the rev range where it kind of falls flat on its face. It seems like it's always really pretty constant. And I can appreciate that in a bike where you can just kind of cruise effortlessly, and the bike just takes it all in without really much of an issue at all. The next thing I really want to talk about is kind of rider comfort. I'm a big boy, and all the super sports seem tight to me. The primary difference between all of the major manufacturers, Yamaha, Honda, Kawasaki, and Suzuki, tends to be minor adjustments in the rider triangle. They're all a little different. And for me, Suzuki has always been the most comfortable. That's just a purely opinion statement. I don't have the numbers in front of me, so I don't know what the actual measurements are on this bike, but you can Google it. It's not uncomfortable. I definitely feel pretty secure. My only complaint is that I still feel like I'm sitting on top of the bike a little bit more than in it, and I really prefer on a sports bike, it gives you a little bit more confidence to be sitting in the bike, kind of, rather than on top of it. And the other problem with sitting on top of the bike is my legs are constantly being splayed up against the gas tank. It's just a little tight for me. I could ride this bike every day if I needed to, but I would probably invest in a set of nice Vortex rear sets in order to basically move the pegs about an inch down and an inch back to give myself some more leg room. Because what happens is every time I have to hit the brake kind of hard, my nuts go right into the gas tank, which is not a pleasant feeling. So, like I said, this bike isn't bad, not by any means in terms of rider comfort. The reach to the front handlebars, and these are all stock by the way, the reach to the front is okay. There's not really a lot of pressure on my lower back. I feel pretty natural. It's just that my knees are a little tight, and so are my ankles. And I have to ride the pegs in the middle of my foot in the arch rather than up on the toe like it's supposed to be, because I'm running out of space back there. Not a big deal. In my opinion, the Honda and the Yamaha are the two tightest feeling for me, because I've ridden R6s of this generation. And to be totally honest, I would really prefer the Suzuki the best. It seems to have a little bit different of a rider triangle, a little bit better reach, and a little bit more space for my legs. And it also has to do with how the gas tank is formed. It's a little bit narrower, but this is a pretty narrow bike. Even without the front fairing, it really is very sleek. I don't feel any pressure in my hips. It's really a fairly comfortable bike. I don't have too many bad things to say about it. How about this guy? This guy looks nice. So here's the bike kind of as it sits. Let's see, there we go. As you can tell, my headlight is pretty much useless. I really like the Yosh RS5, especially on this bike, because it's really, like, you can probably hear it now without me on it. Let me give it a little crank here. You know, it sounds really nice without being just loud. Like a lot of these exhausts, all they really are is just loud. They're like, how loud can we get? And I don't really like that. That doesn't really appeal to me. So I like that this bike doesn't just do loud. It makes a really pretty nice noise. So now we're gonna go find a little bit of a twisty road to see how this bike actually handles. And just so you guys know, I always go through the suspension before I do these. So the suspension is set up. The tires are inflated to the correct pressures. I don't half-ass this stuff. This is what I'm talking about. I just feel that. That's just shifting right up, and it's completely smooth. There's very little back and forth on it. I mean, there's a little bit, but because it's not a slipper. This bike does not have a slipper clutch. But here, downshifting, there we go. I mean, look at that. That's first gear right there, I think. Yeah, that was first gear right there. So it just, I mean, click, click, click. Bye, baby, bye. I mean, I literally only use the clutch for starts on this bike. That's it. Everything else is pretty much clutchless. Which is sweet. So the other thing I should mention is the brakes on this bike. I had to replace this. This is a stock master cylinder. It's the right one for this bike. The front brakes feel really good. The back brake, I feel like, for me at least, I like to use the back brake. I know a lot of sports bike guys are like, you don't need the back brake. Blah, 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 blah. I like to use the back brake. I like to use the back brake on all my bikes. And that's one of the little things I don't like about this bike. The rear master cylinder just doesn't have quite enough power. The radius is a little small. And so you got to push really hard just to get even a little bit of activation on it. And I don't really care for that. I much prefer my rear brake to be, you know, just as smooth as my front brake. I don't like for there to be a whole lot of effort required in the back. I mean, I understand why they might have done that, but at the same time, it doesn't mean I have to like it. The suspension is really pretty supple. It absorbs those little bumps pretty well. I mean, if you definitely hit something big, it's going to jar. I mean, it is a sports bike and not a dual sport, but as far as sport bike suspensions go, I think that this one's nice and smooth. I don't get a lot of push out of it. It normally just absorbs stuff. And like I said, I didn't really dial it in. I just kind of adjusted it for where I have a good feeling now, because I've been a big guy for a long time, and so I have a pretty good feeling of where I need to be in terms of preload and compression and rebound control. So I more or less dial things in. But like I said, the suspension itself is pretty plush. There's definitely no question marks on that. Road subject to flooding. On a day like today, that shouldn't be a big deal. Yeah, this is not the best place to walk your dog, broskies. Broskies. Not dog walking place. Definitely not across the road. I love rolling down here. It's just like, you just look at this shit. It's beautiful. Also gives me a spot to kind of test this bike a little bit. Wait a second. Normally I just pop down through here and then come out here. Yeah. There we go. Twisty road, as promised. So, while I enjoy this, let me give you guys kind of my final impressions. This has been a little bit of a longer review video. I'm trying to make these a little bit more thorough, a little bit more technical. So my impressions of this bike. It's got plenty of power. I don't think, like, you know, I don't want to get dragged into the whole should I use a 600 as my first bike debate. I think this bike would be fine as a first bike. So far, I have to say, it hasn't really actively tried to kill me. Even when I romp on the throttle, it still doesn't push that hard. And if you're thinking, Max, you're riding this road a little slow, Sundays there's there's a lot of bicycles out here, A, and B, I'm not that comfortable on this bike yet. And since I'm talking to you guys, my attention isn't fully focused on the road, and so we're just going to go through here at a good pace, but not anything too ridiculous. I mean, I've been in one gear this entire time. I have no idea what gear that is, probably like third or so. But the bike's got plenty of torque to let me slow down, and then because right now we're doing about 45, so I'll just hang it here, and then we'll slow down into the turns, and it pulls really pretty well. It's not, I mean, it's peaky, don't get me wrong. It's got a wild spot in it, but it doesn't feel stressed. Like, I noticed, like, the CBR600, it really doesn't like this sort of riding, in my opinion. It really likes to be shifted. It likes to be on boiling point all the time. This bike is a little bit more relaxed. It doesn't seem like it needs to be constantly hit with a switch to make it go faster. It seems pretty comfy just doing this. And obviously the video is shorter, but I've been out riding this bike this morning for probably about an hour and a half now, and I don't really feel any fatigue. I don't think I'm going to feel any by the time I get home either. So it's really got a pretty comfortable position. Like I said, the riding triangle is a little tight for my legs. I would probably want aftermarket rear sets to space it out a little bit. But in terms of ground clearance and whatnot, it's probably really nice if you're on the track every other day. The suspension is supple, the engine is supple. I think that's how I describe this bike. You know, if I hadn't had all the trouble with fixing it, I would really probably appreciate it more. But to me, it feels like Honda really nails the middle of the road. And the Hondas tend to be the most expensive. In 2007, this bike was just under $10,000, whereas most of its competitors were hovering around the $9,000 mark. So the Hondas aren't cheap, and they don't necessarily offer the best track performance. That title normally goes to Yamaha. Oh, thank you, sir. I appreciate it. But at the same time, you know, it's it really, you know, when I was having mechanical trouble with it, I was blaspheming and cursing and screaming about how much Honda's reliability sucks ass, because it really was a little thing, and it shouldn't have caused the whole bike to break down, but it did. But I gotta say that the reliability, I can't really comment on reliability, but this bike just feels like it's solidly made. Even though this bike's been wrecked, it has this feel of like, I've been there, I've done that, I walked away, you know. And sports bike is not as big of a deal because you stay on the street, but this bike almost inspires the sort of confidence that tells you, like, yeah, we can do a track day at Laguna Seca. Yeah, Valentino who? That's right. And it does. It inspires that sort of confidence. It's probably misplaced because you're not Valentino Rossi and you shouldn't ride like that. But you know, it definitely gives it that character, that passion. I mean, you can feel it with every revolution of the engine, every little tug. It just constantly wants to be, oh, that was a little bump, to be pushed just a little bit harder. But it's a very gentle nudge. It's kind of like when, you know, when your significant other puts their head on your shoulder, you know, and they kind of, they want you to initiate some sort of contact, but they don't really force you into it. It's kind of like that. It just kind of feels like, hey, babe, you know, we can go a little faster if you want. You know, I mean, we're doing like 45, but we could do 50. We can do 50, maybe even 55. You know, and you know, you can debate on whether that's a good idea or not. But when you hop on like an R6, the R6 and the Gixxer are the worst about it, in my opinion. You hop on the CBR600, it's like, why are we only going 100 miles an hour? We really should be doing like 150. Or it's like, my top speed is 168, and I demand we do that all the time, every day, everywhere. And some people like that. I don't. I like a bike that is comfortable with its job. This is a bike that I would confidently say that you could commute on every day and never have an issue. And in fact, you know, if you mess with the rider triangle a little bit, you can really commute on this thing like an hour each way every day and never have an issue. And I mean, part of my job description is pulling bikes out of dirty, dingy barns and fields and shit, and so it's hard for me to really gauge true reliability on the street. But I know plenty of people that have a lot of miles on their Hondas, and riding this bike today, I would totally believe that, you know, this is a 100,000 mile sports bike. You know, in comparison, the Yamaha doesn't really have that feel, and neither does the Suzuki, in my opinion. They don't feel like they would be that great 100,000 miles down the road. This bike does. This bike feels like, you know, on the weekends it can be an NSX, and on the weekdays it can be a Civic. And it's got no problem filling either role. So that's kind of it. I would say on the max scale, I give this bike probably a 7.5 out of 10. Like I said, the rider triangle isn't perfect. I think it could use a little bit more torque for a 600. It's a little peaky in terms of like true power production, but it doesn't really fail anywhere. You know, it just doesn't necessarily shine in my eyes. So, you know, take that for what you will. This has been a fun review. I hope you guys enjoyed the new format a little bit. I brimmed the gas tank before we got started, and I've put, well, put almost 100 miles. That's half a gas tank, so that's probably about right. Anyway, so as always, guys, I hope you enjoyed the review. If there's other stuff that you want to see me discuss, some kind of other technical aspects, you want to see some more videos, something more specific in my reviews, you want me to do a specific test, whatever, leave me a note in the comments, and I will do my best to make it happen. Alright, peace.